Well, we've certainly heard from Manuel that he's doing a lot of stuff behind the scenes and really not necessarily seeing yourself up at the front. But I think, requiring rules, and you've said the same thing about it's not so much eco-labeling. We have 370 eco-labels in Europe. You know, it's no wonder the public get confused. And I think most people just expect for it to work. The problem we see, of course, sometimes is that when you go and buy that extra green product, that television that has got the star efficiency on it, you just buy a bigger one because, well, it must be better because it's bigger and it's actually green. So this sort of rebound effect is very difficult to counteract, and I think the way in which you have the narrative is obviously very important. But now, translating narrative into something more tangible, which is actually league tables, because one of the things I think that companies look at is where to invest, where to move to, where to find the people to be in the business that they want to see themselves in the future. Rules, definitely for industry. What about rules for cities? How do we benchmark cities? You know, I asked you at the very beginning, is there a league table of cities? You kindly declined to tell me. But maybe you might want to shed a little light on how you as an advisor might actually sort of stack them all up and compare them. And then I'm going to come out to the audience and see if you've got some questions for our panel. So, Greg.
Right. The quick answer, Jaqueline, is that there are more than 65 different global indexes of cities. And every year I publish an analysis of all of them and the change that's going on. So if you like, the index of indexes. The key thing to say about them is that the number of indexes that address green issues is growing. Okay? Both those that address quality of life, there are about 15 of them, are more interested in environmental quality of life, carbon performance, the greenness of cities. Then we have 2 or 3 specialist indexes, the C40 index. You'll hear from Mayor David Miller later on today about the C40. Environmental leadership by cities. There's the Siemens Green Cities Index. There's the emergence now of a whole series of smart city measures of one kind or another. Now, the issue is this, and I'm going to tell a secret and try and tell it in a rather provocative way. Historically speaking, the cities that have scored well on the environment or the quality of life have been the cities that have scored very badly on the indexes that measure dynamism, the ones that measure powerfulness. So if you like, implicitly, if you look at all of the indexes, green is boring, right? So the cities that score well are not the cities that are the most dynamic. Now, the big change is the one I was trying to refer to just at the beginning, that because of the financial crisis and the climate emergency coming together, what you're seeing is the dynamic cities are realizing they've got to be greener. So Tokyo, London, Hong Kong, New York are all very actively pursuing green strategies. The cities that are historically green cities are becoming more dynamic. So what's happening is that cities like Aarhus, which is a green city with a strong focus on wind energy, is now becoming a dynamic global hub for wind energy and seeing that being green actually is an engine for dynamism, which it wasn't before. So that's a very quick summary.
I think what Greg's telling us is Aarhus is a boring place but could become more interesting. Is that sort of where you are? Yeah.
It's an interesting place that could become more interesting.
More interesting, right. Out to the audience. Questions, comments, reactions. The lights go up. You've had your coffee? Please, sir. Would you just introduce yourself, please?
My name is Paul Hansen. I come from Aarhus.
Oh, right.
Working in a business related to the wind industry, one of the lessons I've learned is it's okay to invest in offshore wind if you can find the finance, because there's only 10 banks providing the finance, which equals to around the capacity of 30% of what is required. That's one thing. The second is the situation you mentioned so deliberately about the grid, which is in the UK a big problem. And so it is in Germany, and it's not in Denmark. But maybe the politicians should work on a more straightforward model for grid connection all over Europe. Yeah. Think that's possible?
Very good. I'm going to come back to the panelists at the end for some very quick answers. Other reactions from the audience? Enabling conditions, problems. Yes, right at the very back, I'm afraid. I'll run up there with the microphone. Could anyone else who wants to speak just indicate to me so I get a kind of flavour of who's out there? who wants to ask? Okay, I'll come down to you, and then we'll probably have to call it a day. But please, introduce yourself.
Hello, I'm Lasse Holm. I'm a business developer at Dong Energy. I'm hearing you said green energy is boring, and of course it is, at least from a consumer perspective.
Not green energy, green cities.
Green cities, of course. And I'm hearing you mentioning energy efficiency and green energy. And I think you miss a point. What if you have a lot of windmills producing wind energy, but it's producing wind energy at night? So you need to move your consumption to the hours where there actually wind energy in the system. Otherwise it's just wasted. So that's a different perspective, and to the consumer, why should I even care? Which is why we need to create the economic incentives for the consumer to change that behavior, and we need to think about that as well. Thank you.
Okay, very good comment. Down here, please. Would you mind just raising your hand so they can see where to bring the microphone? Thank you. And I've probably got a chance for one more, if there are any other comments. Yes, I'll get you here then. So down here for this gentleman, and then up here, please.
Thank you. Jan Bijsman, I'm from Aarhus. Well, it's a little
well
bit
represented here.
well,
Yeah.
I'm from Denmark, Europe. Okay. It's a little bit difficult to ask a question that makes sense to all the panelists, but let me try. You have given us some examples of best practice and looking at what the world needs, investing in infrastructure, creating rules and committees, and so on. But as we know that it is people that changes the world, not institutions, not organizations. So could you give us some best practice on how people matters, how about leadership, dedication, execution, etc.?
Very good. And the final question up here, please. Thank you.
My name is Karsten Hauner. I'm from DHI. One question to the question by Don, actually. That is, well, windmills produce wind at night, that's right. So we might shift our usage to nighttime. But they also produce in some periods of the season, not in others. So we need, if we have to go to more sustainable energy, we need some energy storage. And to what extent are you envisaging new energy storages as part of that? Do you think that a smart grid is going to take care of all this problem? Or could it be energy storage on the ground for district heating, or other types of energy storage that we have not yet developed?
Thank you very much. Actually, there is an answer to European scale, which I might do at the very end. But now in reverse order, and I'm afraid we are a little short for time. So, sure. Will, would you like to just pick on any one of those to respond to? Thank you.
Well, let me respond to a question that was directed at me about the sort of wind industry. I mean, I totally take the finance point. I think it's overstating it, but we're sort of going from boutique to industrial scale in this whole area, and that's going to need, you know, provision of finance, both in scale and quantum, and also in types of finance in a state we don't have at the moment. And it's certainly something that's live in the UK. On the question of grids, I think your point is absolutely right, and I think there's a huge role for Europe actually in identifying some of the key grid bottlenecks, and the European Union over the next 6 months I think could lay out a quite ambitious strategy for unblocking those and creating the electricity infrastructure that we need, and that's something we're certainly pushing for. And just on the questions on storage, I would just say absolutely we're going to need really, really dramatic breakthroughs and deployment of storage on a scale we've not got like at the moment.
Very good. I'm going to go down in scale and actually go to cities and then come back to Manuel.
Well, I don't have a specific response apart from absolutely we've got to build the storage capability, and absolutely we've got to create the incentive structure in the grid. The key thing I wanted to say is really this. We need to remember that moving forward the green energy revolution requires us to have some agglomerations, some places that specialize in it so that all places can learn from it. It's just the same as the financial industry or the creative industries or anything else. We've got to have specialist areas, so we've got to support hubs. And that means we've got to align time with purpose. That means political time. Cities have to have strategies that will last over 5 or 6 electoral cycles. Investors have to understand that returns will be different in green energy from elsewhere. And citizens also have to align themselves with the time frames of energy productions, the seasons of the year and everything else. So this is really about managing time differently. And it's very important that we understand that we have to organise around a different time frame.
Thank you very much, Greg. Now, Manuel.
Sorry, I cannot speak about wind.
No, but you can talk about some other things.
I can only answer your question about leadership. Yes, of course. Leadership is in every business, and in the grid technology is very important. But, you know, when I'm in a store, and I get also only a salary, I'm not a rich person, so I get to the store and I see a CFLI that cost me 4 euros, and I see a retrofit, what you will see there around, that costs 30 euros. Yes, I need to show leadership, but you know, I have a lots of fights with my wife. Each time when I tell her I will buy 4 retrofits for 120 euros, and I could spend only 16 euros. So it's a little bit, and here I know there's government, it's regulations, it's a little bit helping and supporting the customer and the industry, and all together, we can then show leadership. But till we don't have the right amount of money, and I don't now start with economics, but you know, if I cannot afford to put all my flat with retrofits, I will do it because I sell this stuff, so it's not good if you come to my home and you see bulbs around, it will be not really nice, right? So I do it, of course, I do it. But I understand that my mother is not doing this. Okay, so it's also a relationship about how much it costs. And that's why it's so important, what I told you before, working with government. Government invests huge amount in Korea, and actually we reduced a lot the price of the LED. But now my question is, how much will reduce the fixture guy and the retrofit guy, they're outside? And I don't see this reduction, what we give to our customers. So this is a little bit, we need to work really all together, analyzing the whole value chain, really working all in this value chain. Alone, we will not survive, and then it will not make sense.
Thank you very much, Manuel. I'm afraid this is the end of this session. I'm not going to summarize. I'm just going to simply say that I think what you've seen is 3 superb examples of how people working at different scales have been able to achieve a lot. The question is, can we achieve a lot more? And I think it was really about the narrative. It's about telling people where they fit in to this big picture that's probably going to make it possible for everybody to contribute. I think meetings like this are obviously very helpful because we find our way, we find our partners. But I do believe that there is a role for government, and certainly at the EU level, getting that bigger picture to actually resonate, whether it's in cities or people, and to have a very, very strong education, investment in people, as well as actually in the industry itself. So new finances, new picture, new narrative, give a place for everybody. And please give a hand to our panel. Thank you. Thank you. That's very nice. Thank you very much. Thank you, Greg. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jaqueline.